The satisfaction in the good is bound up with interest. Whatever by means of reason pleases through the mere concept is good. That which pleases only as a means we call good for something, the useful. But that which pleases for itself is good in itself. In both, there is always involved the concept of a purpose, and consequently, the relation of reason to the at least possible volition, and thus a satisfaction in the presence of an object or an action, for example, some kind of interest. In order to find anything good, I must know always what sort of thing the object ought to be. For example, I must have a concept of it. But there is no need of this to find a thing beautiful. Flowers, free delineations, outlines intertwined with one another without design and called conventional foliage, have no meaning, depend on no definite concept, and yet they please. Satisfaction in the beautiful must depend on the reflection upon the object, leading to any concept, however indefinite, and it is thus distinguished from the pleasant which rests entirely upon sensation. It is true, the pleasant seems in many cases to be the same as the good. Thus, people are accustomed to say that all gratification, especially if it lasts, is good in itself, which is very much the same as to say that lasting pleasure and the good are the same. But we can soon see that this is merely a confusion of words, for the concepts which properly belong to these expressions can in no way be interchanged. The pleasant, which as such represents the object simply in relation to sense, must first be brought by the concept of a purpose under the principles of reason, in order to call it good, as an object of the will. But that there is involved a quite different relation to satisfaction in calling that which gratifies at the same time good must be seen from the fact that in the case of the good, the question always is whether it is immediately or immediately useful or good in itself. But on the contrary, in the case of the pleasant, there can be no question about this at all, for the word always signifies something which pleases immediately. The same is applicable to what I call beautiful. Even in common speech, men distinguish the pleasant from the good. Of a dish which stimulates the taste by spices and other condiments, we say unhesitatingly that it is pleasant, though it is at the same time admitted not to be good. For though it immediately delights the senses, yet immediately, for example, considered by reason, which looks to the after results, it displeases. Even in the judging of health, we may notice this distinction. It is immediately pleasant to everyone possessing it, at least negatively, for example, as the absence of all bodily pains. But in order to say that it is good, it must be considered by reason with reference to purposes, viz., that it is a state which makes us fit for all our business. Finally, in respect to happiness, everyone believes himself entitled to describe the greatest sum of the pleasantness of life as regards both their number and their duration as true, even as the highest good. However, reason is opposed to this. Pleasantness is enjoyment, and if we were concerned with this alone, it would be foolish to be scrupulous as regards the means which procure it for us, or to care whether it is obtained passively by the bounty of nature or by our own activity and work. But reason can never be persuaded that the existence of a man who merely lives for enjoyment, however busy he may be in this point of view, has worth in itself, even if he at the same time is conducive as a means to the best enjoyment of others and shares in all their gratifications by sympathy. Only what he does, without reference to enjoyment, in full freedom and independently of what nature can procure for him passively, gives him absolute worth to his presence in the world, as the existence of a person, and happiness, with the whole abundance of its pleasures, is far from being an unconditioned good. However, notwithstanding all this difference between the pleasant and the good, They both agree in this, that they are always bound up with an immediate interest in their object. So are not only the pleasant and the immediate good, the useful, which is pleasing as means towards pleasantness somewhere, but also that which is good absolutely and in every respect, viz., moral good, which brings with it the highest interest. For the good is the object of will, for example, of a faculty of desire determined by reason. But to wish for something and to have satisfaction in its existence, for example, to take interest in it, are identical. Comparison of the three specifically different kinds of satisfaction. The pleasant and the good have both a reference to the faculty of desire, and they bring with them the former satisfaction pathologically conditioned by impulses, stimuli. The latter, a pure practical satisfaction, which is determined not merely by the representation of an object, but also by the represented connection of the subject with the existence of the object. It is not merely an object that pleases, but also its existence. On the other hand, the judgment of taste is merely contemplative. For example, it is a judgment which, indifferent as regards the existence of the object, compares its character with the feeling of pleasure and pain. But this contemplation itself is not directed at concepts, for the judgment of taste is not a cognitive judgment, either theoretical or practical, and thus is not based on concepts, nor has its concepts as its purpose. The pleasant, the beautiful, and the good designate, then, three different relations of representations to the feeling of pleasure and pain, in reference to which we distinguish from each other objects or methods of representing them, and the expressions corresponding to each, by which we mark our complacency in them, are not the same. That which gratifies a man is called pleasant. That which merely pleases him is beautiful. That which is esteemed or approved by him, for example, that to which he accords an objective worth, is good. Pleasantness concerns irrational animals also, but beauty only concerns men, animal, but still rational beings, not merely qua rational, for example, spirits, but qua animal as well. And the good concerns every rational being in this general. This is a proposition which can only be completely established and explained in the sequel. We may say that of all these three kinds of satisfaction, that of taste in the beautiful is alone a disinterested and free satisfaction. For no interest, either of sense or of reason, here forces our assent. Hence, we may say of satisfaction that it is related in the three aforesaid cases to inclination, to favor, or to respect. Now, favor is the only free satisfaction. An object of inclination, and one that is proposed to our desire by a law of reason, leaves us no freedom in forming for ourselves anywhere an object of pleasure. All interest presupposes or generates a want, and as the determining ground of assent, it leaves the judgment about the object no longer free. As regards the interests of inclination in the case of the pleasant, everyone says that hunger is the best sauce, and everything that is eatable is relished by people with a healthy appetite, and thus a satisfaction of this sort shows no choice directed by taste. It is only when the want is appeased that we can distinguish which of many men has or has not taste. In the same way, there may be manners, conduct, without virtue, politeness without goodwill, decorum without modesty, etc. For where the moral law speaks, there is no longer, objectively, a free choice as regards what is to be done, and to display taste in its fulfillment, or in judging another's fulfillment of it, is something quite different from manifesting the moral attitude of thought. For this involves a command and generates a want, whilst moral taste only plays with the objects of satisfaction, without attaching itself to one of them. Explanation of the beautiful resulting from the first moment. Taste is the faculty of judging of an object or method of representing it by an entirely disinterested satisfaction or dissatisfaction. The object of such satisfaction is called the beautiful. Second moment of the judgment of taste, according to quantity.